The studio lights came up, steady and familiar, bathing the set in the same glow that had welcomed countless mornings before. The audience clapped, cameras rolled, and everything seemed routine at first glance. Yet, beneath the surface, there was a subtle shift, a quiet energy that didn't fit neatly into the usual rhythm. It wasn't dramatic or loud, but it was noticeable to anyone paying attention. The air felt heavier, softer, and somehow more intimate, as though the room itself was preparing for something honest and reflective rather than scripted. The smile that carried years. Kelly walked out with the familiar, bright smile viewers had known for decades, the kind that normally radiates warmth and sets the tone for the morgendagen. Pausen. Time, there was something more layered behind it, a trace of thoughtfulness, a gentle tension around her eyes, a carefulness in her gestures that suggested a deeper presence. Mark moved alongside her, greeting the audience with warmth, yet his voice carried a subtle steadiness, an unspoken support. Together they sat at the desk, and the usual chatter paused, leaving a moment of quiet reflection that invited both the studio audience and viewers at home to lean in, to simply listen. When silence holds meaning. The quiet stretched across the studio, neither forced nor awkward, but filled with sincerity. Kelly rested her hands lightly on the desk, fingers interlaced, grounding herself in the present. She took a deep, measured breath, and when she finally spoke, her words were simple but resonant. Good morning. Today isn't going to feel like a typical show. There was no dramatics, no exaggerated emotion, just the calm honesty of someone willing to share her truth. The audience sensed it immediately. This was a moment that deserved attention, reflection, and presence. Speaking beyond the cameras. Her gaze traveled beyond the set, beyond the lights and the microphones, as if she were speaking directly to millions of viewers who had grown alongside her career. She reflected on time, on how subtly it moves, reshaping routines, priorities, and expectations. She spoke of gratitude, of lessons learned in the public eye, and of understanding oneself amid the constant hum of visibility. These reflections weren't meant for headlines. They were quiet truths, shared without embellishment, that resonated because they mirrored the experiences of countless people watching from kitchens, living rooms, and offices around the country, choosing authenticity over script. There was no teleprompter for this moment, no polished lines waiting to be delivered. What viewers were hearing was raw thought expressed aloud, a decision to share vulnerability instead of rehearsed humor. Kelly, so yes is I, Waysoni Yaoi, of long years in a highly visible role, the challenge of always being on, and the quiet tension that arises when personal identity and public persona blur. Her openness transformed the moment from routine to intimate, inviting the audience to see her not as a television personality, but as someone reflecting honestly on life, growth, and change. The quiet support beside her. Throughout her reflections, Mark's presence provided steady reassurance. He didn't interrupt or steer the conversation. Instead, he offered calm companionship. A glance, a small nod, a hand resting lightly near hers on the desk communicated trust and support without words. It was a quiet reminder that no journey, especially one that involves change, is meant to be taken alone. Viewers felt the comfort of that presence, recognizing the power of partnership in moments of honesty and reflection. Reflections on life and growth. Kelly's words were layered with contemplation, exploring the natural shifts that come with time. She spoke about how routines and roles once cherished can gradually feel different, not because they are unimportant, but because life and perspective evolve. Loving something deeply doesn't mean it will or should remain unchanged. Her reflections encouraged viewers to recognize that growth is a sign of life fully lived, that change is not failure, and that honoring one's needs is a courageous, necessary act. The subtle power of routine. She described the rhythm of mornings, the comfort of schedules, the quiet joys and costs of repetition. There was no bitterness, only awareness, a recognition that routines, even those built with love, can feel confining over time. She spoke about simple wishes, to savor a cup of coffee without checking the clock, to move through the day without performing for others, to allow herself to simply exist. These modest desires, voiced openly, carried a powerful reminder that self-care and presence are acts of grace, not indulgence. Connecting with the audience. What made this moment resonate wasn't Kelly's platform or fame, but the authenticity of her expression. Anyone who has stayed too long in a role, a relationship, or a rhythm that once brought joy could relate. She reached out for help, from Mark, from professionals, and from herself. We all carry burdens, but we don't have to carry them alone. Second, vulnerability is strength. To share, to say, "This is hard," takes bravery. When Mark shared Kelly's truth, he didn't weaken her. He honored their love, their reality, and their strength. Third, hope is not naive. It's necessary. Without hope, we despair. But hope doesn't pretend that darkness isn't real. Hope simply insists that the story is not over. And finally, love doesn't mean fixing someone. Sometimes love means being present, being the hand they squeeze in the night, the voice that says, "I'm here," the heart that believes when the body falters. The future. What lies ahead for Kelly and Mark? In the next section, we'll discuss what Mark and Kelly say about the future. What treatments lie ahead? Will Kelly get her voice back? And how are their marriage and family shifting in ways they never imagined? Here's the truth. Stories like these don't have easy endings, but they have endings worth believing in. If you've ever felt powerless, remember, you're stronger than you think. And if you've ever watched someone struggle, remember that your love matters.